JT back in court today again on whether or not he has presidential immunity regarding the charges against him for January 6th. I know this is really dumb, but we're going to go through all this. This is going to decide, though, if Jack Smith can even proceed with any part of his prosecution with Trump at all. This case essentially would fire Jack Smith if ruled in Trump's favor, because it will show that the DOJ never had the authority to appoint a special counsel or charge Trump in the first place. Now, presidential immunity dates back to 1867. It was a decision in Mississippi v. then President Johnson, where the Supreme Court established that the president is largely beyond the reach of the judiciary. The court stated it had no jurisdiction to enjoin the president in the performance of his official duties. Now remember, Trump was still president on January 6th at a political rally in Washington, D.C. Seems pretty official to me. Despite that, 77% of Democrats disagree. That makes them wrong, but they still think Trump is guilty of an insurrection on January 6th. That's why Colorado, Maine, and many other states are attempting to remove him from the ballot. Never mind the fact that there has never been a conviction, but they're doing it anyway. And Donald Trump today, no shortage of words on this either.
When they talk about threat to democracy, that's your real threat to democracy. And I feel that as a president, you have to have immunity. Very simple. And if you don't, as an example, if this case were lost on immunity and I did nothing wrong, absolutely nothing wrong, I'm working for the country.
Yeah, I happen to agree. I'm not sure how this is even an issue. First off, January 6th was not an insurrection. You want to know how I know that? First, because not a single person has been charged with insurrection. No one, in fact, has ever, in relation to January 6th, been charged with insurrection. Definitely not convicted. Two, if it was an insurrection, and I have been asking this for years, please somebody explain to me like I'm stupid on why the party that owns 90% of the guns in this country and not one was found to have been brought to the Capitol that day. Riddle me that, Batman. And three, there is not a single piece of rhetoric that anyone can point to that shows that Donald Trump encouraged people to enter the Capitol, break the law, or otherwise be unpeaceful. There just isn't. The only thing they can point to is that somehow he, I guess, didn't tweet fast enough for people to disperse, which is weird because Trump debunked this.
When they went to the Capitol and they were breaking into the Capitol, smashing windows, injuring police officers, why did it take you 3 hours to tell them to go home?
I don't believe it did. Oh, let me pull it out. I have to pull it out. If you look, January 6th, this is before 2:30. I am asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful. This is right after, as it was happening. But what happened is they took it down. I don't know why. I think they took it down because it was so good. They didn't like it being up there.
The guy's awesome. But since when is not doing something a crime for a president? Seriously. By that standard, should we charge Joe Biden for not closing down the border every time an illegal migrant kills someone? After he gets kicked out of the White House in November, can we criminally charge him for that? I mean, it's the same standard. How about let's do George Bush? He told the world that WMDs were in Iraq that were never found. Thousands of troops died. It cost us trillions of dollars, and he sits happily in Kennebunkport with zero charges. Should we charge him for that, too? By the same standard, we probably could. All Trump did was not tweet fast enough. Ironically, the one thing that Democrats had wished he had done his entire presidency, and now there's an entire case hinging upon him not tweeting. You see why most Americans just roll their eyes at this stuff? If you're anything like me, all these cases are not only stupid, but they're all starting to blend together, too. So outside of today's case, I mean, this is just the tip of the iceberg. That's on whether or not he has presidential immunity against these criminal charges. But you have the case brought by Alvin Bragg also that has kind of taken a backseat, that accuses Trump of falsifying business records with regards to Stormy Daniels. Yes, that's still going on. And this is something, honestly, I couldn't care less about. You also have this ridiculous RICO case in Georgia that this case today could actually have an impact on, even though it's a state case. And new information, this is the best part, in this last day or so, the Georgia prosecutor, Fani Willis, paid almost $1 million to a married guy she was in a relationship who never had prosecuted a felony case in his career, nor had any major investigative case experience. We're going to dig into this with Judge Knapp after this, but not to mention the fact that Fani Willis unilaterally paid him those funds and that were given to him and were sometimes taken on lavish vacations. Unbelievable. You also got the case with the classified documents in Florida for the same accusation that Joe Biden was seemingly skating on. Not to mention the ballot fight that's headed to the Supreme Court now. And finally, the Letitia James case, where a judge said that Mar-a-Lago is worth like, I don't know, 1/10 of what it actually is. You know, the case where the would-be victim, Deutsche Bank, who testified that they loved working with Trump, where he paid them everything on time and in full. And between all this, by the way, he's finding time to run for president so he can crush the very machine that seeks to do to all of us the exact same thing they're doing to him. I don't know how this guy does it. And I don't understand why any of this is in court anyway, but if you take any of these to the legal extreme, any of these cases, most aren't even a good case. And some, in my opinion, have absolutely no merit or standing at all. Not a lawyer, but seems pretty simple. I mean, look, yes, Democrats did, in fact, impeach Trump over this, justly or not. I think it was not, but he was exonerated by the Senate. So that alone should have put this whole thing to bed. No charges, but Democrats don't play by the rules. So instead, in the absence of reality, Democrats, and I'm including Liz Cheney and Brian Kinzinger, they ran an illegal committee, hired a bunch of primetime TV producers to carefully tell the story they needed to back up the exact false and divisive rhetoric Joe Biden is now using on his single pitch to why Trump should be barred from the 2024 presidential office. I mean, really? And this from the party that screams misinformation. You know how many corrections media outlets have had to issue, especially since the release of the tapes, because they've spouted off about January 6th? The View had to do one this week.
Yes, I misspoke. I said that a Republican congressman had been holding the gun. Actually, we don't know if it was a Secret Service or a police officer that day, but the one holding the gun, the two Republican congressmen were behind the guy holding, the law enforcement officer holding the gun.
Oh, I misspoke. That's what they always, I misspoke. Just recently, the new House Republicans asked to view all the depositions, too, related to the illegal January 6th committee. And would you look at that? They couldn't find them. They just vanished. And this is their case against Trump? So much so that they're willing to violate every single norm, every single law, and every single standard to try to get him on something? This is the most investigated man in the history of probably ever, and he's still standing. But these people never stop. And they think that, maybe, they never stop to think that maybe the guy that they're trying to make out as some con artist, maybe he's not that. And most Americans right now are thinking that he's a whole lot better than what we got in the White House. In fact, more and more Americans are starting to think that Trump was right. And that is the real reason all these people are going after him.